one English speaking guest today from Brussels. It's Tine Vandepaer from the Bouwmeester Maître Architecte. I think I cannot pronounce it right.
That's
Hope
right.
it's okay.
Very good.
I'm doing a short introduction of our four persons sitting here before giving a small content-wise introduction in German, and then give the word to Stefan Kurath, who will give a 30-minute input lecture. Yeah, my name is Felix Beuter. I studied at the University of Applied Science from 2020 to 2024 and graduated last year. Then moved to Hamburg, where I'm studying at the University of Fine Arts. And for this semester, I came back together with Clara Grothkopf as a teaching assistant, and we started the Studio für konstruktive Kritik, a semester project with 110 master students that are developing alternative ideas to the plans to demolish our campus and the existing building, the Ingenieurwissenschaftliches Zentrum. And sitting next to me is Professor Dr. Stefan Kurath. He's an architect, urban planner, and professor at the University of Applied Science in Winterthur next to Zürich. Stefan Kurath not only teaches urbanism, but also writes about it. And that's how I get to know him and his theories about the book called Baukultur mit Bestand that was published in the beginning this year, I think, if I'm right, in the Swiss Trieste Verlag. And as I already said, Tine Vandepaer is here from the Bouwmeester Maître Architects. This is not a classical architecture bureau, but more a governmental organization by the state of Brussels, by the region of Brussels. And if I would have to compare to a similar position in the German governance, it would be something like a Stadtbaumeister bureau, more or less. You can tell us something more about it later. And sitting left to me is Professor Fabian Storch from the TH Köln as well. And now I'm going to switch back to German before Stefan goes on. Genau, dieser Abend ist in vieler Hinsicht irgendwie ein bisschen anders, würde ich sagen. Das, was vielleicht neben dem ganzen Ortswechsel und Co. am meisten anders ist, dass er anders als die vorherigen und kommenden Abende nicht direkt von Studierenden eine Vertiefung geplant ist, sondern so eine kleine Sondersituation in unseren 6 Abenden darstellt. Als wir, und damit meine ich Professor Dr. Daniel Lohmann, Professor Dr. Rainer Schütz-Eichel, Sabine Schmidt, Hannes Sobala, Clara Grothkopf und mich zusammensaßen und eben diese Idee entwickelt haben, wir machen einen Abend, wo jede Vertiefung ein Architekturvortrag sei, wo jeder Abend einer Vertiefung zugutekommt, die selber am besten wissen, wen sie einladen und welchen Input sie brauchen. Wurde recht schnell klar, dass wir so ein organisatorisches Monster erschaffen haben, was nicht überall reinpasst. Es ist viel Organisationsaufwand auch extra. Und da hat die Vertiefung Planungsmanagement und Immobilienökonomie gesagt, beziehungsweise auch Falle der Neuplanungen, das ist in dem jetzigen mal eine Extraleistung nicht machbar. Was ich sehr cool fand, dass es so klar gesagt wurde. Und dann haben wir gesagt, du kicherst, aber ich finde es immer besser zu sagen, weil es ist keine Kritik oder so. Dann haben wir halt überlegt, lassen wir den Abend ausfallen oder vielleicht, und das ist der Grund, wieso wir jetzt hier sitzen, übernehmen wir den und widmen dem den Aspekt der Planung in einer Form, in einer Veranstaltung, die wir in einer Form schon mal als Studierendenorganisation auch teilweise geplant hatten. Und letzteres haben wir eben gemacht. Deswegen sitzen wir hier in so einer etwas anderen Runde und nicht, also der ökonomische Aspekt wird nicht haupt zum Tragen kommen, sondern es geht eher um Planungsprozesse. Ich habe noch mal 2, 3 Bilder reingesetzt für die Leute, die bei den letzten Mal nicht da waren, um zu zeigen, wie es eigentlich aussehen würde. Das ist so eine Light-Version, würde ich sagen. Den runden Tisch kennen die meisten wahrscheinlich schon. Das sind Bilder vom ersten Abend. Das ist Dr. Stefan Putz und Dr. Felix. Genau. Und nun einmal so ein kleiner inhaltlicher Einstieg. Das ist ein Zeitstrahl, den Clara und ich gestaltet haben, der auf 4 verschiedenen Ebenen alle möglichen Zeitpunkte rund um die Planung des alten Campus Deutz, um die Neuplanung und um die Kritik zusammenfasst. Den haben wir den Masterstudierenden an die Hand gegeben zu Beginn des Semesters. Und da kann man mal ranzoomen und eben bei dem Punkt Erbauen schauen, wenn wir schauen, wann das IWZ, wie es jetzt eben steht, angefangen wurde zu planen, dann sind wir hier 1973 und 5 Jahre weiter, ein bisschen länger, im 5,5 vielleicht, stand das Gebäude. Und da gehen wir aus von der Planungszeit, wo dieses Bausystem begonnen wurde zu entwickeln und enden bei einem Endzustand, wo irgendein wichtiger Mensch ein Band durchgeschnitten hat. Und wenn wir das mal vergleichen mit dem Planungsprozess oder der Dauer, in dem wir gerade stecken, sieht man schon an der Schriftgröße, das ist eine andere Geschichte. Wir haben 2010 den Beginn mit den ersten Ideen und den ersten Planungen und Gutachten und stand jetzt Mitte der 2040er, also sehr weit da hinten, ein Fertigstellungstermin, der anvisiert ist. Und ich glaube, das verdeutlicht ganz gut, wieso wir heute über Planung sprechen oder wieso es auch wichtig ist, über Planung zu sprechen. Planungsprozesse werden per se gerade länger und das hat verschiedene Probleme mit sich. Das wichtigste oder größte Problem ist, dass wir hier gerade sitzen und darüber diskutieren, ob es gut wäre, das Gebäude abzureißen oder nicht. Und das hat natürlich seinen Ursprung darin, dass die Entscheidung 2010, das Gebäude abzureißen, unter ganz anderen Vorzeichen getroffen wurden. Und wenn ein Planungsprozess eben statt 5 Jahre 35 dauert, wird das alles komplexer und am Ende bei der Fertigstellung ist die Chance relativ groß, dass die Rahmenbedingungen, unter denen man die Entscheidung getroffen hat, gar nicht mehr in der Form existieren. Also wer von euch würde jetzt auf die Idee kommen, irgendwie 30 Bäume zu roden und zugunsten von temporären Parkplätzen? Ich glaube, tendenziell niemand, wurde letztes Jahr trotzdem gemacht oder dieses Jahr. Und genauso wenig würden, glaube ich, viele hier auf die Idee kommen, ein altes Gebäude abzureißen zugunsten eines neuen, das Gleiche kann. Genau. Ich habe noch ein 2 Bücher mit reingepackt, because these are the 2 books where I used to know you both, or your practice more or less. That's Stefan Kurath mit Bestand that I mentioned, and the Soft Power, a great publication of the works of the Bouwmeester Maître architects. And now I'm going to skip through the next pages a bit quicker. They were supposed to be at the end. But I think I talked enough, and I would like to give the word to Stefan Kurath now.
So thank you very much. Please allow me to stand up and to go out of the light. I hope I can see that. I try to make it in English, but it's written on German, so if you don't understand me, because I don't understand myself as well. Why I'm maybe here is that my research and dissertation is about the discrepancy between planning and reality, and so I try to give a small glimpse into this topic, when the future is faster than a plan. I mean, today is a perfect example when plans do not fit in the reality, because something happens always, and it's easy to say if the future is faster than a plan, so change the plan. So that's what we did today, and that's why we are here. But maybe it was already the spoiler. So I have to start to discuss how we think that planning works. And in this presentation, you will see one thing is a misunderstanding or the misconception of self-understanding of planning, and at the same time, it explains why we did demolitions the last 150 years. So with the Enlightenment, there arrived the master and the plan. And enlightenments and science give us an introduction how we solve problems, and since 150 years we start to solve problems. So we had the problem in the 19th century of revolution, fire, pest and cholera, and the master knew how to solve it. There was the plan to demolish and to build it new, and they hoped that we will have a healthy city. And this is one of these examples of Osman and the demolition of the historical center to have this axis for light and fresh air, but mainly as well for the cannons to shoot directly into the revolution. So this was one solving problem. Then afterwards we had the dirt and the industrialization. The master knew what to do, and even more light and air and sun and modernization of the society. So they hope that we have solved every problem and there will be no more afterwards. So you know this same plan in Paris by Corbusier, and unfortunately or fortunately the plan stayed as this was. Then we had missing urbanity. We had this kind of sprawl cities. The master know what to do, the right city and the right life in the wrong cities. And this is Lampugnani in Wallisellen, close to Zurich. The idea of the 19th century in the 21st century as how to solve every problem we have. And now we have the problem, it's too hot and gray, and the master know what to do. So we have this buzzword, urbanism, green city, smart city. So they hope that the living will be more efficient in the green tunnel, but this will, as all this problem solving comes out, that we have first the demolition everything was there to make it better, but to demolish it again. And what this means, this 150 year of history of problem solving of masters, I will explain very fast in the example of Frankfurt am Main. So we have this, I found by accident this fantastic plan on the internet, and you see the first demolition episode in the 19th century, the purple housings which have been demolished to make bigger streets, avenues, and lights. And you already can imagine this building here, which then will build and demolish at the same time. But we start here with this picture, Frankfurt with the new Braubachstraße 1906. This is this street which was done straight through the historical center of Frankfurt, which was the first demolition. Started the planning in the end of the 19th century, so we already had then this kind of similar things like in Paris. Unfortunately, we have another story which arises, but this explains then why this building arises here, the Technische Rathaus, which was maybe a sibling of the one standing here in Campus Deutz. But of course, this has a history and was placed into this kind of field next to the church. But this was then a problem for some of the peoples, and then they decided to reconstruct the historical center and to solve the problems they had with the 70s, they solved with the plannings of the idea of today. So we have new ideas and demolition and new ideas and demolitions, which is a very strange story in reflection of today's problems. So, but this as well had an impact on how we discuss and how we write the history of architecture and urbanism, and which is kind of written as a history of ideas. And in the history of ideas, there is the master, and there is the fantastic idea of the master, and that's the problem solved. And maybe there have been men, if you look at the histories, there are men which are kind of standing over time, change, and society. And this kind of problem-solving ideas written in the history of architecture, history and theory starts to become, I mean, it starts, it's already is a problem since long time. We all know these books about the history and ideas of cities, which is, if you really read it about the ideas, it's only about the man, about their idea, and about their results, but there's never history and the frames of society that make them their planned workings. For example, what Leonardo Benovolo has written about Haussmann in Paris, he said that the will of Haussmann, the planner, and his ability to bring the others to do what he wants was a very important factor in the history of his work. But if you really read about the history of Paris, you know that Haussmann, the plans from Paris were not the plans from Haussmann, he just took them over. As I said, firepress color revolution was a problem, and as well, and Napoleon III mainly, which will see the power of the government made the possibility for Haussmann to change things. Without them, even the will of Haussmann would not have been enough to just do all this demolition. So we see his, and it's, what is important and interesting as well is that Benovolo, he has the quotes of the history of the demolition of Paris, mainly is from Haussmann himself. So Haussmann wrote his own history, which Benovolo took as a source to explain the history of Paris, which is a total strange thing. And but that and this history of idea and theory made us believe that there is the planner having an idea in the morning, and during lunch he has the plan, and in the evening it's built. And you can see, you know, all this the Handgottes from Corbusier, which kind of says that the architect stands over the city and he decides everything. This is this strange eigenartiges Weltbild Planung, which I was teaching in school at university as well. And when I came into practice, something was not really like this. And then I started to think about why it's not. It would be nice, I have to be honest, but it's not like this. So I was, and then I thought that, okay, when this is the reality, I have to think when there was no plan, but I know in Switzerland there were thousands of plans for this region. Maybe there was not enough will from the planners, I don't know. But somehow, even the theory and history says that architects could do proper cities, something, there is somehow a discrepancy between what we think and what is reality. So that was then my research. I started how that planning is going to work or not. And I found this fantastic plan, the plan synopsis of the Bauingenieurwesen Planung from Theodor Fischer from München. And we have a closer look that you see that his Bauingenieurwesen plan, some of them, of course, the permanent structures of streets, they're fit, but there is a lot of things happened not following the plan of Theodor Fischer. So there is already this discrepancy. And you know all these his stories about having plans and then have resistance. This one is in China, and the right one is in Zurich. It's even written resistance in Zurich West, where the owner kind of resisted to turn his house down, but the planners planned the street for the Erschließung for this area is straight through the building. So the building now is no more there because the demolition, but the street still is not in this direction because meanwhile they find a different to see, but the building is gone. And we all know these plans of the right cities where They had these great plans of growing cities, and then they had the Immobilien crisis, 1927 or 8, and this fantastic composition of quarters started to stop for a few time. Now I think this one is finished. Okay, it works, but the others still look like strange. And of course, this is a topic now in Zurich. The last 20 years, we demolished all the settlements of the Genossenschaften to make new ones, but just bigger dwellings, but not more. And now we have a resistance, which everything stands still in Zurich. So we have to discuss now how to go further, because we have immediately need of having more houses or dwellings, but we have a resistance in everything. So there is a certain Wohnungskrise in Zurich, but I think it's not only in Zurich. When I was asked to come here to tell about, or to make a presentation about changes, master plans and time and change, there was that many books written before myself, starting from Lucius Burkhardt and Thomas Sieverts and Ron Koolhaas and Jeremy Till and all of these guys was written about this, that I would think that it should be known. So what shall I tell you? But I found one sentence which was very typical. It brings it somehow off the point. First, architecture is a dependent discipline. Second, architecture as profession and practice does everything to resist that very dependency. So architecture depends, but architects believe that they are in this autonomy of architecture, free of everything, and this might not be the truth. So that's how we think that planning works. This is kind of the complexity of the reality. Then we have to do a reduction, because knowledge production is always related to reduction. So we have the plans under complex thing to kind of operate on the world, which is necessary. So there is no other ways, but we have to have this kind of all these actors being part of the plan to be able to make a plan. And afterwards, you think that the society will follow the plan, because it's that good, and what for else we do plans, then that the society will follow. But what really happens is that the complexity comes back, and what is strange that in this part of this triangle, most of architects are not in this part of planning, which is kind of the way from the plan to the reality. So in this time, if you are not aware of this, you have to lose everything. And if you do it right, then we don't lose anything. So we have to be aware that here in this part of, which is the blinde Fleck, the blind spot of planning, everything can be lost if we think that nothing can change than what we saw before. But it shows quite clear that planning is not a prediction, it's a speculation. And in the speculation, you have to be very adaptive to kind of have the possibility to react on changes in time. But this is, we have invented an education for further education, MIS in urban planning, and all the people coming from practice to do this MIS, and they work in this field. I mean, they are fantastic in competitions, they're fantastic in participation processes, they are fantastic in making nice plans, but here there is almost nothing. And this is a huge problem that we are not aware that, and most of the problems are arising there. So, which is one conclusion of my research, city is not the result of planning. It's more a result of socio-technical negotiation processes. There is next to of systemic non-understanding with only a rare kind of structural relations. So this brings this result of insel urbanism, which on each parcel somehow something happens, but without any relations. And this is the result in this kind of sprawl cities. So that was then a question, how a question you wrote to me or to us. So what I try is to answer it, how planning has to change to become more effective and futurable. So we have to add realism to our self-understanding. The good thing, and the very good thing, is that we still need to have ideas. So we still can work as architects, and we can really use this history of ideas to support our ideas. But only to make nice plans alone is not enough. We have to understand how these plans, what happens from here. This is the process to make nice plans. I think that we really can do immediately. But the problem is then here, and we have to understand what happens here, and we have to come into acting, and we have to stay in acting. We have to make sure that the society, the changes and the time, and all these kind of crises arise and so on. And if we want to be successful, we have to be there and to be able to adapt the future in time, and which is seen as well very important. And Osman was not alone. Osman and his plans by himself do not have any effect, but he had all other actors. Napoleon was quite important, and some others. So there is always a necessity to build alliances to change something. So now we are in the middle of management teams, but I think one thing is important, that planning is always a form of speculation in it. How it will become a reality is related directly to how we are in the time acting and building alliances step by step to be in time with the ideas of the plans. So then we come to the practice of today, and the result of the 150 year of demolition and the history of modernism, is that you all know we use too many resources. We have a lack of biodiversity, we have problems with CO2 and all, and you know this better than I do, but all these problems we have, and it's not as easy to solve it, so we even have the non-solutions, which, for example, Bauingenieurwesen was writing about, but as well Lucius Woodcock already said it in the 50s. But where we are now is architecture and urbanism in times of crisis. It starts to become a question of ethic and moral. So we have to have a position to the world, and we have a position how to change something. So in this way, an understanding of acting network theory, architecture always is political. So this makes it even more interesting, I think, at least, because it's not only having ideas, but if we have an idea how to reduce this kind of demolition and how to, if you recycle all this material from the demolition, we could come by ourselves into acting. So we could say, okay, I know I did this plan, but it does not really work anymore, so I should change it. So that could be maybe a message to the one who did the plans in Deutz. They could come by themselves on this idea that it's not maybe that a good idea, or what you are doing to bring others into acting. So you can question, you ask the question, so are you really sure this is a good plan, or maybe not? And if you have not this kind of political interest, but at least you could be convinced by the one of B to be part of it. So you could say, okay, B has right, and I could support him. And the most important is that if this B and C works, you should stay kind of keeping active. So there is needed the political architect to build alliances and to renew old ideas. How would planning culture look out if to reduce the demolition and recycle all the material? And if you go further, if you look at the history of urbanism and cities, there would be 2,000 years history of recycling and transformation. So we have 2,000 years and 150 years. So I think there would be a lot of knowledge in the history to deal with the problems we have today. And we have this morphological theme of permanences, like the public paths, which endured about 2,000 years, and we have the immediately change of things within this structure. And there is a lot of material how this process was doing. So most of them, they started with several houses next to the street, and then they start to build up and to go into death. And at the end, after 2,000 years, you have these kind of structures. We all go to holiday in it. So they cannot be that bad. And if you look at the plans, you see that these structures were, first of all, it started with one house and it went into death, and then they put it together, and then they started to, out of 5 houses, 1 house, and here there are kind of 2 houses put together with a new elevation to make it more proper. But you see that the material was reused. No one in this time came to idea to demolish everything and to bring then all the material from Canada and China to build something new. So this is a very strange idea of the last 150 years, but 2,000 years we just took the material and resources we had, and if we did transformations, we used everything. So reuse, recycle is not a very new topic. And we all know this example, split the Palace of Diocletian, which was transformed into center of the city, or the Lucca amphitheater, which was changed to a place for tourists with some nice places for flowers. And you know as well this kind of amphitheater, which was transformed into housing over 2,000 years. Of course, there were other uses in between, but the structure stayed, and the wishes of the society was inscribed in the existing structure without always turning everything down and rebuild it from zero. So we have now these structures which are Florence, kind of city-like, but we have it as well in the Alps, like in Wallis, in Ulrichen, which we have similar structure in the Alpine regions. So, but this was kind of an idea for Monte Carasso, which is not in the scene in Switzerland. You see this infrastructure, you see this kind of historical center, which is very small very small parcel structures. They are about 200 square meters each parcel, and with the Planungsgesetze from the 70s, which you have border distances of 5 meters and floor ratio area of 0.3, then you have about 200 square meters. 0.3 is about 60 square meters, 70 square meters, which is too small for single family housing. And if you have a parcel 20 by 10 meters, which is 200 square meters, and you have a border or a distance from the parcel border, you have by 5 meters, you have 0. So it was standing still from the 70s till the 90s, because no one was interested to put the parcels together, because they were families but not friends, and they were not ready to bring it together to make at least out of 2 parcel 1 to make at least 1 single family house. So for 20 years there was nothing happens. It's just next to Bellinzona. Then Luigi Snozzi, which was a very political architect, had the commission to build a new school at the border of the village, and he said, no, we have a monastery in the middle of in the center of Monte Carrasso, so we could reuse the monastery as school, and then we have an activated center. And he had the idea for these very small parcels to now have longer this kind of Grenzabstände, and he put up the floor area of 1, and out of 20 pages of regulations, he did 8 kind of regulations, which was a reduction of all these strange rules they had in the 70s. And here just a few examples: the church, the extension of the school next to the monastery, and the rules that they had to build on the border of the parcel. Like this is the historical example. This is the one by the friends of Luigi Snozzi, and which gave a new kind of potential while using the existing the Bestand and having identification of the existing. Just a few examples. So to come to a conclusion, how to stay flexible. And first, to continue with building means to work with the things already there. So here's an example of West Lausanne. You see this agglomeration sprawl thing of 9 communities which had to work together, and the planners, Flemmers and Kostermann, they said we take the permanency of this region, which are structures that are grown up over hundreds of years. So they thought that maybe they will stand for another 100 years. So that was the kind of very strong and robust gerüst for the future developments. So point 2, and this is things that already Lucius Burkhardt was writing. To continue building means as well to keep things empty, to just not define before what everything will be, because then you can discuss with the future generations what should be happen on this wild thing. So you have not to define everything in the plan, you can keep things open. And then to continue building means as well to not follow the function with the buildings, but to follow resilient properties. Means that resilient structures which are open for social inscriptions, which then is kind of the autonomy of structures. So you can see that in these structures there are 2000 years different uses in it. Starting with 1 family, then more families, and then kind of becoming a shopping center, whatever, this historical city. And you can see this kind of, this is a structure of 70s of Oerlikon in Zurich, which is empty now. And this student in the master thesis was thinking about to kind of adapt this structure and bring with experimental living a new function in this existing structure without demolish it. And I have to show this because this is our University of Applied Science, that's the space where we are teaching our students. This was 100 years ago, industrial hall where they built ships, Rhine ships. The the small ships on the Rhine, and they transformed it in the 90s into a school of architecture, where we are teaching now this fantastic surrounding without several plans to demolish, of course, this thing, and they wanted to build a normal kind of business district, and we should have gone into the normal office buildings to teach the students, but there was a resistance to keep this and to build this school in it. And which is, if we keep it open and if we let the time and the society of the future generations to be a part of plannings, of course, architects should be there. They have the political role to always reconnect the ideas of plans with the changes and of the wishes of the future generations. So there is important that we, in this triangle, I showed that there is at least someone with an architectural or planning background to connect the plans in time with society. And architecture can do everything. We have all these fantastic projects dealing with the existing structures. And architecture can do everything in the right time and the right space. So to come to the conclusion, if the future is faster than the plan, then we should just adapt. And if it's not possible, then maybe the plan was not good enough. So I could have just said this, but I made a half an hour out of it, and you can read it in these books. Thank you.
So now I'm going to switch back to the first pages, and Hannes is helping us with taping the beamer so we can see something. Maybe this one is good. Thank you very much for your input. And now I think I would like to give the microphone to Fabian Storch to moderate our inputs in a way. But before, I would like to ask a question to Tine. Maybe can you give us a small introduction about the practice of the BMA by words? What you do and what, if you maybe can link some of your practices to the things Stefan said, and then we can, meanwhile, you can start thinking about questions if you haven't understood anything in this. Yeah.
Is this good? Yeah. The BMA office is an independent government-paid office that enhances quality in urban planning. This means we have some tools to do this. We organize the main part of our job is organizing architectural competitions. We organize one competition every week, so 50 competitions a year, more or less. So that's quite a lot. We work with both public contractors and private developers. So we also organize architectural competitions for private developers. We're not the head of the planning district, so we just advise. We don't have actual power, but we do have some authority. Looking at some of the mentions, so we're not the people making the plans you were talking about. We're trying to influence these plans in a certain way. We try to find the right architect for the right spots, and in this way, Brussels maybe has a culture since some time now to make the plans are less strict, so to say. We like a clear urban vision in a certain way. We have a quite hard city to love with a lot of quite eclectic urban image. So this negotiated urbanism is something that we already practice in, for instance, the canal zone, where we didn't make an actual master plan. There was Shemetov who made more guidelines. So it's the idea to keep some productive activity and to combine them with housing. So in our team, we also have a part that does research by design. So every developer that comes with a project, we question them, we put these into drawings, and we get all instances around the table to discuss about this project and make kind of a guideline, project brief. To keep the prices low, for instance, because if we're not there in this process, sometimes the prices go up and you get like these development, this pressure on the fast food place. I don't know how to say it, on the prices actually. So maybe that could be one of the parallels I can see between our jobs. And then also, yeah, we are in Brussels have been advocating for to not demolish any buildings anymore, and we're quite successful in this now. Don't know if this is a bit of a clear. It's a bit a lot that I said. It's maybe also don't know if it's clear for you what the Bouwmeester does now. Okay.
Thank you.
If you have questions, don't hesitate.
So we now have the difficult task to combine your two positions into the let's say the statement that you started with or you ended with. But first of all, I would like to ask the audience if there's any further questions. Wenn es auf Deutsch geht, machen wir das genauso gut, dann helfen wir beim Übersetzen. Also erstmal vielleicht die Möglichkeit, bevor wir inhaltlich versuchen mal die interessanten Punkte hier herauszukristallisieren. Die Frage ans Publikum gibt es erstmal nach Verständnisfragen zum Gehörten und Gesehenen. I'm just asking to clarify potential misunderstandings or lack of understanding due to language issues or whatever, and then translate or try to moderate. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Also keine Frage ist jetzt irgendwie zu klein oder zu peinlich. Also wer gerade genickt hat, wer bei der Frage, was das Büro oder die Stabsstelle Bouwmeester genau bedeutet, der dürfte das jetzt fragen, weil ich würde wetten, dass die Hälfte des Publikums nicht weiß. Ich wusste es bis vor einer halben Stunde auch nicht. Aber natürlich sind genauso andere Verständnisfragen vielleicht jetzt mal angesagt.
Schon nicht heraus.
Dann sind alle besser vorbereitet als ich. Das ist auf jeden Fall sehr gut.
Ich hätte eine Frage und würde deine Englischkenntnisse damit nutzen, deine Übersetzungskenntnisse, und sie auf Deutsch stellen. Du übersetzt. Ich habe festgestellt, ohne das irgendwie zu planen, sitzt jetzt eine Person aus der Schweiz hier und eine aus Belgien. Da ich so mitverantwortlich war, Leute einzuladen, das war jetzt irgendwie, das hat sich so ergeben, aber ich glaube gar nicht, dass es so ein Riesenzufall ist, weil ihr beide in euren Ländern, habe ich das Gefühl, deutlich andere Wege der Planung verfolgt oder ein bisschen fortschrittlicher seid als hier, soweit ich das einschätzen kann. Ich meine, ich habe ja noch nie geplant, nur so blauäugig das zu behaupten. Und mich interessiert irgendwie ganz stark die Rolle der Menschen in den Ländern, wie das mit der Planung zu tun hat und eben auch mit Themen, zerstört man jetzt ein Gebäude oder nicht. Weil als ich beispielsweise vor einem Jahr von Köln nach Hamburg gezogen bin, habe ich festgestellt, dass Leute in Hamburg ganz anders über Stadt nachdenken und viel aktiver auch irgendwie Lust haben, Stadt zu gestalten. Und in Köln hängt man irgendwie in so einem netten Lokalpatriotismus fest. Nicht Doch schon, oder? Komplett. Und Leute in Hamburg sagen halt, ja, wir haben da irgendwie so eine Fläche und die Stadt Hamburg möchte da ein Haus bauen und wir sagen, nee, mach da mal einen Park draus und die Stadtverwaltung sagt, ja, okay, machen wir. Und Leute, genau, die Frage, I mean, I can try to formulate it in English and if not, you can help me if it won't work. The question is, how does the society affect the planning and the role of the question of, are we going to demolish a building or how does city planning work in general? It's a big question, but
is it a coincidence that you're both non-Germans and then are coming from Brussels, from Belgium, and from Switzerland, or not?
I have to add that I lived and worked in the Netherlands, so of course I'm more influenced by Belgium and Netherlands way of thinking in processes and having totally different understanding of landscape, because it has to be, at least in the Netherlands, produced, which is totally different to Switzerland. The landscape is God-given and we as architects try to not destroy it. But I'm much more influenced and interested in urban planning, which comes from these kind of countries, which in the 90s reinforced, of course, was the reason I left Switzerland, because it was boring and annoying to make always these boxes. And I wanted to have different scales, bigger scales, thinking in process. Landscape became very important. That was the reason I studied landscape architecture as well. And of course, there are, I think we have total the same idea. I'm still wondering why this, how we can still do plans with a perspective of 30 years. In this restriction, I saw it, for example, Campus Deutz, but as well I'm in Munich North in a planning process, which is for a Swiss understanding, and my education in the Netherlands, totally strange how rude it is made and planned and thought and done. So, but I know not enough about the German planning mentality. I can, of course, bring it back a little bit to Boomers and the Mecklers and so on, which are very strong in this idea. We have in Switzerland as well to Flamboyant, to have the right city, to have the good city, to have the power of architects. So this is the universum I'm working with.
I think in Brussels maybe we have an advantage. We started out as a disadvantage. We were running a bit late on planning, or a lack of planning in a certain way, which made for a sort of a chaotic approach. But that means that some things that happened that we could learn from other cities, as keeping industry in the city. In a lot of cities it got pushed out into zonings. We still have a cement factory only 15 minutes walking from the Grand Place in Brussels. That's one thing where we could learn from other cities and then try to do better. And then also maybe in Brussels, there's a strong, it's quite densely built already. So there's not a lot of open space to make new big plans. You have to demolish like really large city parts. And we also have a quite traumatic past in this way. So and then you have also the combination of a really strong civil society. So we have a lot of bottom-up movements in Brussels. It has always been like that. We have this the part of in urban planning, when you ask for a permit, there's also this procedure right in the end. Even if the government is okay with the permit, there's still civil society that can reject and can intervene in a very late stage. So now we're trying our very best to have them intervene earlier in the process and to integrate them into the planning process, to what is a bit strange, maybe thinking about this non-demolition politics. I think because you talked about when this plan started in 2009, if I got it right. I have to admit that in 2015 we still commissioned an architectural competition where a really large built block was demolished. It's being realized now. So in 2015, the mines weren't there yet. Now we're there. We don't demolish anymore. It took some time, and what might be strange is that I think it started with private developers realizing the cost of the demolition, the cost of the construction site as well. The duration of time becomes really expensive, which makes it interesting for private developers to use these buildings. Maybe a combination of those. Not sure if this answers your question.
What I heard from you doesn't really answer your theory that it's no coincidence that our two guests are not from Germany, because I think what you have mentioned is not solely originally Belgian or Swiss or Dutch. I was more thinking all the last minutes about something I don't get together between like two kind of statements that we saw and heard tonight. Is the gap or the conflict between the theory that planners know everything, then there's a plan, and then they lose touch, and your second triangle that goes out again, that if they don't keep in touch with the users, with society, with everything, then they lose touch to the project, and it's going wrong. What does that have to do with all of a sudden the final statement, okay, no more demolishment? Sustainability, environment now is the reason to keep the existing structures, because the historical review, I think, doesn't help us much because it was under different circumstances. The people 2,000 years ago were not smarter than us. They just didn't have resources. So of course they kept what they had, because they didn't have a stone from China that was cheaper than the stone from northern Italy. They didn't have a timber from Canada that was cheaper than the timber from the Black Forest. So the adaptation of the problem that you pictured, that if we don't think and keep in touch with the ongoing process of who is going to use the building in which society and where, in which urban context, then the planner kind of doesn't do a good job anymore and is out. What does that have to do with we need to keep an existing building? Because our buildings that are there are very solid in most cases. Otherwise, we wouldn't keep them, or we can't keep them. Or the buildings that we're designing and building needs to be very flexible, but very solid on the same time. So I have gaps in my understanding between these positions that you have presented, and I would be interested to dig into that maybe a little further.
I guess what I'm trying to say about keeping these existing buildings is that we work with the urban tissue, the existing tissue, and we adapt this tissue. So I can understand why you see the gap, but
you're also planners, and you're overseeing competitions where planners participate, and where there's a client, whether it's public or private, is like the client. How does that quality control enables you better than others to understand what's going on the second half of the triangular diagram that Stefan has shown us? If you lose contact to what's going on in your context, in your neighborhood with the users, and you can't adapt, then you're lost. How do you make that possible better with your committee or with your institution?
Well, that's a hard question to answer actually, because it's true that we're not the urban planners, and we're not the end users either. We're not the investors either. We just accompany the process and try to help make it as best as can. We try to really question the question that is posed in the beginning. I think the problem with plans is often that the posed question is wrong. The one you put in on the table is not the right one. If you question that question often, like why is this building being demolished, or why do we need to redo this campus entirely, and you keep questioning it enough, is it because I think it's really strange that this building is still, even if it's heritage, that it still might be demolished. So if you question the question enough, maybe the plans will be more intelligent. I think that's what we try to do. And so not demolishing is one part of these, but keeping industrial activity into the city is another one. Circular, because you also talked about adding layers and reusing materials is another one where we work on. Providing sufficient affordable housing is another one. Because we're not actually in government, we're paid by government, but we're an independent institution. We're a bit between everything, which allows us to integrate a lot of ideas or questions to hopefully make the basis plan better. But no, we don't make the plans. I'm not the urbanist designing or saying we should. This should be équipement, or this should be only solely housing. We don't do this. We just accompany them, and we're involved in all the process. And because we hear a lot and we see a lot, and we're between all of these institutions, we can influence. I think that's also a bit what Felix was saying earlier. The book, the soft power. That's the tools we use. We don't have actual power, but we have these soft power tools. We have this vision of all the region. We know what worked in a certain way, what didn't work, where we can go, and we try by doing. I don't know if it's more clear now or.
Yeah, it is for me. I mean, it sounds like the process, the quality improvement in the planning process, whether it's asking more questions or more continuous, or setting up different planning processes, helps to fill the gap between the perfect plan and the perfect result. That makes quality better, or more sustainable, or more flexible, because you ask more questions, you implement processes that embed a bigger quality.
Yeah, and if we cannot answer the question ourselves, we try to surround ourselves with people, because we don't. That maybe links to your discourse as well, where you say like the genius architect in a certain way. We don't pretend to be this genius architect. We try to surround ourselves with a lot of collective intelligence. We work with universities, with other European institutions, and we try to influence in this way. There was this proposition, it didn't get validated yet, but the new proposition for the règlement, the planning rules states that a demolition will not be permitted unless you have a good argumentation, and there's an expert office checking this validation, checking if it's right what these developers say. So this is quite a big thing. Another one is having enough open space for infiltration, for instance. It's like, and it's more a lot of small things instead of one big plan. It's more negotiated urbanism. That's right.
Just you said that we have not the right society for our means. We had the historical example were not good because we had a society which had limited resources. if you take the need of CO2 reduction serious, we cannot go further bringing all the material from all over the world. So we have limited resources if you take it serious. That in this time we are then in a kind of in a position where we have to keep the resources we have and work with it. So then that's the thing. But these discussions we had 30 years ago already. But what happens in the last 5-10 years in the society is the awareness because of climate activism. If you have participation processes now, every tree needs to be saved, every house needs to be not demolished. So you have an awareness in the society which helps us now. You seem to be further, but we have the discussion already. It's really changes that we have really huge discussions in society to not demolish anymore. This is something where society has an influence of planning, because before we had not the alliances, now we have them, so we have more power. And the other thing is, of course, there is as well in Germany discussions about control and Vandepaer, all this process and timing planning. If I quote Thomas Sieverts, for example, Zwischenstadt is exactly, he wrote it in the 90s, IWZ Park, keeping industrial and transforming it. Yeah. As well in Germany, we have this discussion, Ladenburger colleague with Michael Koch in HCU Hamburg, which had this discussion. So as well in Germany, it's all seen notes. And but somehow there is. I write still letters with Thomas Sieverts because he doesn't like mail, so we write by hand. And I sent him my book because we are in discussion, and then he wrote me back that he and a lot of his friends are in depression because they write and think since 50 years about the things we still are discussing now, and he doesn't. I mean, he thinks that he lost his time because nothing happens. But I think now we are in a maybe it goes. If you look to USA in a total different direction, but now we are somehow in a time where the awareness of the society is almost there, where the thinkers of planning have been 50 years ago. So there is this thing of alliances and are staying in relation to society, which can help to make these themes really aware, to really reduce the CO2 production.
That was quite surprising for me as well when you mentioned that these ideas are nearly 50 years old. I have one course at the University of Fine Arts given by Jesko Feser, and we just read like 70 or 50 to 70-year-old text about plannings, and they are on time, they are on point, and they describe exactly the same problems that we have today. I mean, if you read Burkhardt, we came to read Burkhardt about 2 years or 3 years ago about Bauen ist Weiterbauen, and it was extremely surprising that there were people with exactly the same problems. But the question is, I mean, you seem to learn from this and say that you can't demolish a building, or you only can demolish a building if you have a quite dense reason why. And I think from my perspective, Belgium and Switzerland are much further in this point as Germany or Cologne in general. Yeah. No, it's okay. I'm talking now.
Ich kann es auch so fassen. Kann man mich verstehen?
Ja.
Wir sind ja eine kleine Runde.
Ja.
Ich habe die ganze Zeit überlegt, ob ich es jetzt auf Englisch oder auf Deutsch versuche. Mein Englisch ist wirklich nicht gut, also hoffe ich auf eine Übersetzung und vielleicht als Barriere ein bisschen hier verkleinern für alle, sich auch an dem Gespräch zu beteiligen. Ja, ich würde da gerne anknüpfen, weil genau diese Frage von wegen, was kann denn die Gesellschaft, wozu ist sie bereit und kommt es aus der Gesellschaft, was wir dann letztendlich auch planen können. Hier sitzen jetzt ja einige Leute auch im Publikum, die auch Erfahrung in Planung haben. Also die Architekturbüros arbeiten, vielleicht Architekturbüros führen, vielleicht in anderen Einrichtungen, die vielleicht auch Land oder so arbeiten. Und ich bin jetzt ja auch in die Situation gekommen, dass ich jetzt in solchen Prozessen irgendwie in kleinster Weise mitwirke. Und diese Theorien, die gibt es ja wirklich schon seit Jahrzehnten. Und ich glaube, viele hier im Raum werden das auch so empfinden, dass man sich denkt, ja, ist doch eigentlich irgendwie eingeblich. Also ich habe von Stefan Kurath jetzt ja auch vieles gelesen gehabt und dachte auch, das ist total eingeblich. Ich kann nicht verstehen, warum wir das als Gesellschaft nicht machen, weil das macht ja irgendwie, ist sehr logisch. Und ich glaube, meine These wäre auf diese Diskussion, dass man es aber wollen muss, auch, um es dann auch zu machen. Und das wäre jetzt meine Frage auch in die große Runde. Vielleicht fühlen sich einige Leute angesprochen, die auch aktiv planen aktuell in Deutschland. Wollen wir es denn eigentlich? Wollen wir es denn ausreichend? Weil mir wird jetzt tatsächlich gesagt, und total vernünftige Leute, die dann sagen, ja, da brauchst du gar nicht erst in die Diskussion zu gehen für dieses Thema. Das bringt nichts. Wir werden nicht anfangen, darüber zu diskutieren, ob wir dies und jenes aus dem Gebäude erhalten. Die anderen interessieren sich sowieso nicht für diese Argumente. Und das heißt aber für mich, dass ich tatsächlich dann auch nichts sage in dem Planungsprozess. Ich bin jetzt auch nicht in der Position dazu, aber vielleicht ist man ja vielleicht in der Position, das dann auch mal zu sagen. Sagt man das denn dann schon oder denkt man sich, die wollen das jetzt eh nicht? Also was ist jetzt ganz, ich sag mal, ganz grob runtergebrochen, wollen wir in Deutschland wirklich eine Veränderung der Planungskultur? Dann müssten wir es nämlich auch machen und dann müssten wir das natürlich auch einfordern.
Ich glaube, ich weiß nicht, du willst gar nicht, dass ich darauf antworte, sondern jemand anders, aber ich will trotzdem darauf antworten. Ich kann auch nicht übersetzen. Ich würde aber trotzdem ein Vorwort davor setzen, dass wir hier gerade in einer universitären Runde sitzen und also diejenige, the person that plans to demolish a big building, raise your hand here. I don't think that here is anybody or everyone who sits here has an understanding for the theories or a small interest. Ja,
Nee,
übersetzen.
Nein, gibt nichts zu übersetzen.
Okay. I mean, I always question myself, how can we get in contact with the people doing the planning process that started the process 2011 and said, let's demolish it. I think this would be way more effective than or efficient than, yeah.
In actual planning practice, it's not like in the universal context, right?
I understood some of your words in a way that you raised a question. The theories are there for quite long.
Mm-hmm.
What is the driving force now, yesterday, tomorrow, 10 years ago, to finally execute them? And who are the people doing that? Is it us as a society? Is it planners? Is it politicians? Is it architects? Is it the people from the neighborhood? Who is it? And that's part of, I think, what you tried to say or ask the question. And if Brussels, if Switzerland, if other countries, cities, communities are further in that process, why is it that way? Who initiated it? Who had the idea, the power to execute it? Because the knowledge is there for many years and decades for all of us. So was that part of your question? Where is...
My question is, when are the crucial points where we actually could make a difference? Because like today, when I was looking at a building, I did not ask anything about recycling anything because someone told me not to question anything. So I did. I did not question it. And why do I do this? And I think there are a few people in this room who are working in an actual architectural practice and know that there are some parts of it that's being thrown away, like somewhere, you know, and we can't do anything because someone tells us there's no point. But do we just accept it, or do we ask once more?
But it sounds like it's not the general question to demolish or to keep, but more in detail, how much can we keep, who is asking which question and who decides it, and when is the right time to ask a question and who does it. And I think that's complicated to answer.
Yeah, it's not easy. No, but I mean, one crucial point is that we as architects and planners and are not taught, or at least I was not taught that our profession and our practice is very political. So we have no training in how to raise our voice and what to do, except what genies do to blame the society that they are all stupid, and this doesn't work. So if you tell another one that he is stupid, he is not interested to work together. So immediately this is one of our main problems in architecture, how we come to society, and that's the reason why architecture lost its relevance, because whether they say, I'm the genie, do it like I want to do, or you are a stupid one, there's not a way how to change power. But the good thing if you are looking at how planning works and how things changes, there is a discussion of power, but you can change power. And change power means to build alliances, and it's easier to build alliances to be friendly than to blame others idiots. So this is things we are not trained how to make these things, and of course we wait usually as architects till we have a commission, and then we do what the client says because we could lose the job and things like that. But that's just something I learned by myself. 50% of people don't like you and the other like you. So work with the 50% they like you, and you can do a lot of things. And it's really then you can raise your voice. You can not just it's not always easy if you have a commission to raise in the right time, but you have the possibility for social media. You can have critiques on what's going on in newspapers. You can raise your voice in politics to build alliances. There are 1,001 and more ways to build alliances, and it's very hard, I have to say as well, and it's very frustrating, but that's part of the game, but it's possible. And that are things that are not trained. But if you look at what happens in the last 5 years, there is really now the society is listening. Even some people who had it not on the plan that this could be even a topic are now, even from the Spekulanten. They are now sometimes ready with it. I wrote in my book, Halter Immobilien and Bauingenieurwesen in Switzerland is a very strong partner who belongs to the part of the speculations. But you can talk with them and you can together do good things. Money is not always bad. You can do good things with money. So as well there, we are trained to blame everything, but there is a lot of possibilities to do with the right things, to do good things, which is in relation to what we think is needed. And this political aspect of things is one thing I train to my students, that there are ways to change things. It's hard and frustrating, but if you come with the right alliances, it's possible. And that's something, at least I think, is very important. Raise your voice, be kind and friendly, ask questions, don't tell how to do, but you can, with suggestive questions, you can change things.
I totally agree.
That's what we do.
That's what I do. That's actually exactly what we do. We create alliances and we're there to help the contractor. I think in Brussels it started with a project of a private developer developing a building for a government instance that had high durability demands in the brief. But they didn't speak about reuse of the building. It was in the North Quarter, which was also part of traumatic tissue that was once a Manhattan project. So all the small tissue was erased to create a huge office building, monofunctional, very problematic neighborhood. And we forced our way more or less into it. I just said we didn't have power, but sometimes we do try to do some forcing to do an architectural competition with us, because the architect they had already assigned was quite generic. And then the competition was won by an architectural office, Universiteit San 51 and 4E.
Person was part of the lecture series 2 years ago, I think, and told about the project. That was quite interesting.
What did you say? Sorry.
Is it
3%?
Yeah. He was actually part of the lecture series 2 years ago, and some people were there.
So he already told about the process.
I don't know if everyone was there then, but I wanted to link.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. They won the architectural competition, and they were the first ones to present. They were combining offices with housing because we want a mixed urban tissue as a government. And they were really quite intelligent in their proposals. So they kind of made a shift in the mindset of the developers. Then a new developer came into town called Whitewood that knew that people like us want to buy housing in Brussels as well. And they want to have a special kind of patin, or they do like these buildings. So they try to make this shift and address another public. So it's quite a lot of things together. It's urban society, in a civil society in Brussels. There was also this rise of Roltor. I'm not sure if you guys, you know Roltor, of course. It's a company now that started out harvesting materials of buildings that were gonna be demolished or really harshly renovated, and they started out with only the beautiful things, like the beautiful tile works or the beautiful bathtubs, and now they actually have a really huge shop, and they also have quite generic things like lowered ceilings or office floors. And recently there's a project in Brussels called Multi, which was done by this private developer, Whitewood, that wants to really look at durability in another way and also take into account the time of the construction site and the cost of the construction site, because usually they don't take it into account when they make their financial plans. And the whole building, or I think a lot of the finishes is reused material, but looking at the building, you would never guess it. It looks new. So even people not accepting this, because in Brussels we celebrated that this how to say the signature of reuse. So having a staircase and then two walks different, or two different chairs, or some tiles that are missing and we just put in some other ones. So where you really assume this language of reuse, but actually it can also be convincing in a way where you don't even see that it's reuse. So to make it commercially interesting. So I agree, it's a lot of different paths, and it's not one path, but you as architects and urban planners, you do have a role to play, because if Felix de Steen hadn't presented this project, maybe we wouldn't be at the point where we are now. It's because of architects embracing, but a bit before we already had this project Seneca of West architecture that has an exhibition in Beaux-Arts now. It's extremely good. So if ever you're in Brussels, I would really soon now I would really invite you to watch it. But this is more this niche architecture. It's architecture for architects with the signature of reuse, which we all love. But we're now at the point that we're mainstreaming this. I think that's the interesting part. Now we're not only, that's what I find really weird about this, that this building is heritage. It's a beautiful building and it's still up for demolition. And in Brussels, we're actually not even demolishing the ugly ones. We have this thing, yeah, so to say, we have this book we launched 6 months ago called The Architecture of Reuse. And in this book, we have this photo series, beautiful photos made by a very good photographer called L'éventail de la banalité. So it's a bit like look at all of these. I find them architecturally interesting, but I think not everybody would find them architecturally interesting. And we still managed to reconvert them and to keep them. So, yeah, a lot of small things again.
There's one thing that I always wanted to do, maybe it's the right time for now to, I always wanted to get more details about the people who come here and sit here to talk with us. And I want to ask 3 questions, and if the question is right, if you are doing the thing that I asked, please raise your hand, and I'm going to do it in German. Wer von euch hat Architektur studiert? Okay. Wer von euch hat an der TH Architektur studiert? Wer von euch engagiert sich oder versteht die Arbeit, die er oder sie tut, als in irgendeiner Form als politisch oder ist politisch engagiert? Wieso machen es die anderen nicht? Also, das klingt jetzt so anklagend. Ich glaube, ich verstehe es total. Ist auch Zeitsachen. Also, time is a big factor with not having enough time to engage yourself, not?
Never.
What do you mean never?
Time can never be the reason not to do anything political, because then never anything would happen at all. If you want to engage yourself politically, then you always have time, because
That's
then
right.
you make time.
Yeah, that's right. I agree.
Time can never be a reason to not be political.
I mean, somehow you have to earn money, and this is connected.
If political engagement is a matter of time, then we're at the end of it. Why do you have people time to engage and others don't? Is because they're lucky they have less work or less family issues?
Yes.
Or they need more sleep?
For me personally, I can only afford doing the semester, being a teaching assistant or engaging at the Initiative Umbau
because you want to.
Because I want to, but also because I don't have to work for 40 hours in a job to earn enough money for my rent and so. That's a big question that I always question myself.
I totally disagree.
I think I opened the wrong door.
I totally disagree as well. But I mean, it's a bit easy, but it's a 50-50 rule. You know, 50% is very political, and 50% is not in the same position political as you would like to. So the goal is to have 51%, to have a majority. Of course, we now all convinced to not demolish, but there are a lot of people that think, what should we do with this old rubbish shit? We want to have new and comfortable and, you know, everything. So this is the 50-50. So you have to become 1%, and that's the hard work, but it's possible. And I mean, when I look at the BDA, and which by Jörg Heiler, I have a lot of contact, which is from Bayern BDA, and I was in 1 year ago in Berlin at the BDA conference, and I mean, it was all about not demolition, all about reuse, all about building type E experiment, which is just the idea to make it easier to not demolish. And there is a lot of, even in Germany, a lot of things are going on. It's not so, and then just be part of it and just make it bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it will change. But it's not. It's not. As I said, it's a hard work, and you have to be continually doing it and to convince and to, yeah. That's part, but I wouldn't be that. It's always the same to have the majority in the good way, and that's the work you have to do. But it's not easy because it's 50-50. You want to try to have the 51 as well. So
I mean, in a way, that's why we're sitting here, or why we, started this semester.
One thing we also did, but it's because we have the luxury of being this government paid. But to change the mindset, we paid experts to question this demolition. This also made this idea of should we demolish a building? Because developers, of course, they come see the government the Réunion Projet. So we have this thing where we have all instances that talk about the permit, that will deliver the permit, sitting around the table, and the developer can come and present his project, and then we all criticize it together. So he has one idea of where to go. And in these project meetings, the developer comes and he says it's not possible to keep the building because the ceilings are too low. And then if you question it a bit more, these ceilings are too low, but why? Because back in the days, they conceived these office buildings to have, 14 square meters per person working there. And now the new standard is 7 square meters. So they have to put more more weight on the structure, and also more technical installations. But then if you question them further and you see that if they do the calculation and the other way around, they arrive at 9 square meters a person, and it's actually cheaper to not demolish the building. It's shifting this mindset of starting out from of finding the right program for the building, instead of thinking the program doesn't fit the building. Okay, maybe your program's wrong. Maybe it's not the building that's wrong, but your program's wrong.
I'm very happy that you said what you said, because that was triggering me for some time now. Is what comes first, the program or the building? And what is the process to don't step into that gap that you have described in your short lecture? How do we become smart enough and in contact with the changing reality, with the ever-changing and even faster changing reality, and the conflict between a very long-lasting building structure? And you just said, okay, then we changed it. We just turned it around. So what is the right program for what we have? And the question I would like to ask you now, how do you know, or how do you think this could be institutionalized, this change of thinking? Is this part of a planning process? Is it part of architectural education? Is it part of political mindset shift? Do you have a recommendation?
I think all three, to be honest. It should be part of architectural studies as well, but it should also be a political idea. I think the idea started in this basic idea: we do not demolish a building anymore. This means that developers, before buying a building, already look at, because now we have this really huge wave of office building being transformed into housing, but not all office buildings are easily transformable into housing. Office buildings are often quite deep, and so there's no sunlight in the middle. So to have qualitative housing is quite hard, but this know-how is being developed as we go along. I don't think we need another 20 years of planning to make a perfect solution. We have to just start doing it one at a time, and the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Is that right? In the doing, we're quite a big fan of trying and experimenting and going ahead one step at a time and changing the field softly, as you said, actually, not trying to have the mind shift will fall.
I mean, this we've nearly talked about 1.5 or nearly 2 hours right now. And I would look to you if you have any questions or something to say. But if not, I think this might also be a good closing word. Or do you still want to say anything?
Our guests always have the right to say the last words.
I talked a lot. I'm sorry.
Another half an hour that lunch. If you look to the history of what made architecture and urban planning in the making was the crisis. So we had all this pest cholera, we have had fire, and we had wars and so on. And if this global warming is going on, the relevance of planning and architecture will arise immediately. But the problem is we should not wait, or we cannot wait till then. And that's the difficult point, because now we know that there is a problem, and not yet everyone is feeling it, that, and is not even believing, as it would be a question of believing. But somehow we have to keep up this awareness of that there is really going some very bad thing, and of course we can only do it with the sufficiency strategy. So we have to fit the program into the buildings and not the other ways around. And this is, of course, we were trained the last 150 years to just be able to do what we want, and that has to change, and that is a very difficult thing, that we have to understand that not yet everyone is ready to do that, but we have still that's my motivation. We have to bring the architecture back into the building to make society aware that there are possibilities to do something against it if it's not already too late. But I mean, that's the political part, and yeah, it's, as I said, it's hard, it's frustrating, but we have to do it. Otherwise, we can wait for 50 years, and then we immediately have to do it then, but it's too late.
It's a bit frustrating, but
No, not at all. There is a reason to be really motivated.
yeah, that's right.
And the society is now in this change, and that makes it interesting. And we have to now take it, feel it, and build these alliances. And we have to be able to discuss and address and communicate it in the way others understand. That's why I wrote this chapter about the existing is more than just CO2, because we now have we discuss always about this CO2, and the people are even not understanding it or are annoyed about it. But there are thousands of other reasons to keep the existing. So it's about identity, it's about quality, it's about resource, it's about all these things, and we have to make it more in the way and try to find out what the opposite person wants, where we can trigger the other, and we have become much more diverse in triggering than just always making the counts of CO2. So and there. Yeah, it's hard, frustrating, but there are 1,001 and more ways to do it, and that makes it as well fantastic and fun and positive and
that was the ending. I was.
That's actually what I wanted to say as well. Is quite when you look at the architecture that comes from this architectural reuse, it's quite exciting. It's actually an opportunity. It's a great opportunity to reinvent the position of the architect. Instead of just architect, you become part of a bigger organism, and it's quite exciting to be part of it. I think it's a turning point. You should see it as an opportunity.
Yeah, we still have drinks and soup and something to eat there, and yeah, there's still an hour left before that we have to go out. Actually, yeah, thanks for coming, and yeah, see you next week on the next Architecture Tuesday.
Ja? Noch nicht gemerkt. Eingebucht in Englisch. Ja, man muss mir sehr wieder auf eine Studenten. Kommt es rein oder was man halt macht man das oder
My old boss used to run this forum, but he just I don't know.
Yeah. Das war schwierig, ja. War ja auch keine Frage, es war was sage ich?